First contact in the stars. The starship horizon cut through the darkness of deep space, its fusion engines burning bright against the infinite black. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's observation window, her weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass as she watched the distant stars streak by. 20 years of deep space exploration hadn't prepared her for what her sensors had detected an hour ago. An artificial structure larger than anything humanity had ever built, drifting at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her stomach. Lieutenant Rivera's fingers danced across his holographic display. "Unknown vessel maintaining position, Captain. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Size estimate, roughly 3 kilometers in length." He paused, double-checking his readings. "And it's definitely alive with power, ma'am." First contact. The words felt heavy on Chen's tongue. Humanity had searched for intelligent life for centuries, and now, on what was supposed to be a routine patrol of the solar system's outer reaches, they'd found it. "Dr. Marshall, what's your assessment?" The xenologist straightened her glasses, her dark eyes glinting with barely contained excitement. "The design suggests a civilization far more advanced than ours, Captain. Those aren't just engines we're detecting. They're gravity manipulators, the kind we've only theorized about. And they're failing?" Engineering Chief Zhang added grimly. "Those power fluctuations we're seeing, that's not normal operation. Whatever that ship is, it's in trouble." Chen weighed her options. First contact protocols were clear: approach with caution, attempt communication, and avoid any action that could be interpreted as hostile. But if that ship was in distress, open all standard frequencies. Let's see if anyone's home. The bridge crew held their breath as Communications Officer Patel sent out the carefully crafted greeting message. Mathematical sequences followed by simple pictographic representations of peaceful intent, the result of decades of theoretical work by Earth's finest minds. The response came almost immediately, but not in the way anyone expected. A brilliant purple beam lanced out from the alien vessel, causing the bridge crew to flinch. But instead of weapon fire, it was a holographic projection that filled the center of their bridge. Standing before them was a towering figure nearly 3 meters tall, with iridescent scaled skin and 4 graceful arms. Its face was almost avian, with golden eyes that seemed to pierce directly into Chen's soul. "Greetings, unknown vessel," the figure spoke, its words somehow translated into perfect English. "I am High Ambassador Zirovek of the Celestial Concordat." The projection flickered, and for a moment, something like fear crossed the alien's features. "We require assistance." Chen stepped forward, her heart pounding, but her voice remaining calm. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Horizon. We stand ready to help." The alien's expression shifted in a way Chen couldn't quite interpret. "Captain, our ship has suffered a catastrophic failure in our main drive core. We carry," another flicker of the projection, "we carry precious cargo, the heir to our throne and a delegation of our highest officials. If our containment systems fail completely, the resulting spatial tear could threaten your entire solar system." Zhang's whispered curse summed up the situation perfectly. The Horizon was an exploration vessel, not a deep space repair ship, but they were also humanity's only representatives in this historic moment. "Ambassador, we'll need more information about your systems, but we're committed to helping however we can." Chen turned to her crew. "Zhang, gather your best engineers. Dr. Marshall, we'll need your insights on their technology. Rivera, begin calculating safe approach vectors." As the crew sprang into action, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a rescue mission. The way the ambassador had hesitated the mention of royal heirs, there was more at stake here than just a damaged ship. The next few hours were a blur of activity. The Horizon carefully maneuvered alongside the massive alien vessel, its silver hull dwarfed by the organic-looking curves of the Concordat ship. Engineering teams prepared for the first-ever human-alien collaboration, while Dr. Marshall worked frantically to understand the basics of their technology. What no one expected was the sudden power surge that ripped through both ships when they attempted to establish a physical connection. The Horizon's systems screamed in protest as unknown energies cascaded through its circuits, and Chen watched in horror as emergency lights bathed the bridge in crimson. Multiple systems failing. Rivera shouted over the alarms. "Whatever their technology is, it's not playing nice with ours." The holographic ambassador flickered back to life, but this time the dignified facade had cracked. "Captain, the interaction between our systems has accelerated the core degradation. We have less than 6 hours before total failure. Chen looked around at her crew, seeing the mix of fear and determination on their faces. This was supposed to be humanity's first contact with an advanced civilization. Instead, it had become a race against time to prevent a disaster that could affect the entire solar system. Then we have 6 hours to figure this out, she said firmly. Ambassador will need complete access to your technical data, and I mean complete. No diplomatic hesitation, no classified restrictions. If we're going to save both our ships, we need total transparency. The alien's golden eyes studied her for a long moment before nodding. Agreed, Captain Chen, though I'd warn you. What you learn about us may change how you view the universe forever. As technical data began flooding the Horizon's computers, Chen couldn't help but smile grimly. Ambassador, just meeting you has already done that. Now, let's get to work. The clock was ticking, and two species that had never met before had 6 hours to prevent a catastrophe. It wasn't exactly how Chen had imagined first contact would go, but as she watched her crew already beginning to work with the holographic representations of the alien engineering team, she felt a surge of pride. This was humanity at its best, facing the unknown with courage, creativity, and an unwavering determination to help others, no matter how alien they might be. What none of them knew was that this crisis was just the beginning. The real test of both species would come not from failing technology, but from the secrets each side held and the true reason the celestial Concord's royal hair was at the edge of Earth's solar system in the first place. Cultural bridges. The Horizon's conference room had never hosted such an unusual gathering. Captain Chen sat at one end of the table, facing not just the holographic presence of Ambassador Zurevec, but now also the physical forms of 3 Concordat engineers who had managed to transport over before the power surge damaged both ships' docking systems. The aliens towered over their human counterparts, their scaled skin-shifting colors with their movements. A feature Dr. Marshall had excitedly theorized was both a form of communication and a biological sensor array. The smallest of them was still over 2.5 meters tall, making the conference room feel suddenly cramped. The core destabilization began in the quantum fold chamber, the lead Concordat engineer, Balthar, explained. His scales rippled with patterns of deep blue and gold as he manipulated a holographic representation of their drive system. Our normal protocols for containment would require materials we don't have access to out here. Chief Zhang leaned forward, her eyes darting between the hologram and her tablet. These energy signatures, they're similar to our theoretical work on space-time manipulation. Are you saying your drive actually folds space? Among other things, Balthar replied, his scales flickering with what might have been amusement. Though I suspect our understanding of quantum mechanics differs significantly from yours. Dr. Marshall could barely contain herself. The implications are staggering. Your entire approach to physics must be. Doctor, Chen interrupted gently. Let's focus on the immediate crisis. We can explore the theoretical implications after we prevent both our ships from being torn apart. The reminder sobered the room. 5 hours remained until catastrophic failure, and they were no closer to a solution. The integration of human and Concordat technology had proven more challenging than anyone had anticipated. Every attempt to interface their systems had resulted in cascading failures. There might be another way. Lieutenant Rivera spoke up from his position near the door. Instead of trying to merge our technologies, what if we approached this from a purely mechanical perspective? Balthar's scales shifted to a questioning pattern of green and silver. Explain. Rivera moved to the hologram, gesturing as he spoke. Your containment field is failing because the quantum fold chamber can't maintain stability, right? What if we used our ship's magnetic containment systems, the ones we use for our fusion drive, to create a crude but physical barrier around your chamber? It wouldn't be elegant, but it might buy us time. The Concordat engineers' scales rippled with rapid color changes as they discussed among themselves in their native language. Ambassador Zurevec's hologram watched with what appeared to be growing interest. It could work, Balthar finally admitted, though it would require your ship to move dangerously close to ours. The risk to your vessel would be significant. The risk to Earth is greater if we do nothing, Chen responded firmly. How long would it take to implement? With both our teams working together, maybe 3 hours, Zhang estimated. But Captain, there's something else we need to consider. She glanced at the Concordat representatives before continuing. This close to their quantum drive, our systems might be affected in ways we can't predict. We could lose power completely. Before Chen could respond, a new voice cut through the room, one that hadn't been part of the discussion until now. Then we'll have to trust each other completely. All heads turned toward the doorway. Standing there was a figure that made even the other Concordat members straighten in attention. Slightly shorter than the others, but with scales that shimmered with impossible colors, the newcomer carried themselves with unmistakable authority. "Your Highness," Ambassador Zerevek's hologram flickered with alarm. "You should not have left the safety off." "Safety is an illusion right now, Ambassador." The royal heir, for this could be none other, moved into the room with fluid grace. "I am Princess Kiravan, and I will not hide while both our peoples risk everything to save us." Chen stood, recognizing the gravity of the moment. This wasn't just a technical problem anymore. It was a diplomatic situation that could affect the future of human Concordat relations for generations. "Your Highness, I must protest," Zerevek began, but Kiravan cut them off with a gesture. "Captain Chen," the princess addressed her directly, "your people have shown remarkable courage and ingenuity in the face of our crisis. But I sense you know there's more to our presence here than a simple drive malfunction." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Chen had suspected as much, but having it confirmed raised dozens of new questions and concerns. "Perhaps," the princess continued, her scales shifting to deep purple tones, "it's time for complete honesty between our peoples. After all, if Lieutenant Rivera's plan is to work, we'll need to trust each other with our lives in the next few hours." Chen studied the alien royal carefully. Everything about this situation felt precarious, like balancing on the edge of a cliff in high winds. One wrong move could send them all tumbling into disaster. But sometimes, the most dangerous path was also the only path forward. "I agree, Your Highness," Chen finally said. "But first, let's get our teams working on Rivera's plan. Whatever other revelations are coming, they won't matter if we don't survive the next 5 hours." As the engineers from both species began their desperate work, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover something far more complex than a damaged drive system. The princess's presence, the location of their ship at the edge of Earth's solar system, the advanced technology that seemed almost deliberately incompatible with human systems, it all pointed to a larger story. But right now, they had a plan, even if it was a dangerous one. They had cooperation between species, even if it was born of desperation. And they had hope, even if it was tinged with uncertainty. What they didn't have was time. As the teams dispersed to begin their work, the countdown continued its relentless march toward zero, and the secrets that both sides held grew heavier with each passing moment. Hidden threats. The Horizon's engineering bay had become a strange fusion of human and alien technology. Chief Zhang watched as her team worked alongside the towering Concordat engineers, their movements becoming more synchronized as the hours passed. The initial awkwardness had given way to a focused efficiency, born of desperate necessity. "Power coupling stable at 60%, Rivera called out, his hands dancing across multiple control interfaces. "But these readings, something's not right." John moved to his station, frowning at the data streams. The magnetic containment field they were attempting to create should have been showing a uniform energy distribution. Instead, there were puzzling fluctuations, almost like interference, Valthar said, his scales flashing warning patterns of red and black. "These patterns are not natural." Captain Chen's voice crackled over the intercom. "Engineering, we're detecting unusual power spikes throughout both ships. Report." Before John could respond, a violent tremor rocked the horizon. Warning alarms blared as systems throughout the ship began shutting down in rapid succession. "This isn't just interference," Rivera shouted over the noise. "These are targeted system attacks. Someone's hacking both our ships." Princess Kiravan, who had insisted on staying to observe the work, moved forward with surprising speed. Her scales had shifted to a deep, threatening crimson. "The Shadowclaw Syndicate," she hissed. "They followed us." "Your Highness," Ambassador Zerevek's hologram flickered into existence, showing signs of increasing instability. "We must tell them everything now. There's no choice." Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "All personnel, security stations. Ambassador, Princess, my ready room. Now." Minutes later, the core group had assembled in the captain's ready room. The tension was palpable as Princess Kiravan began to speak, her scales now a somber mix of gray and violet. "The damage to our ship was no accident," she began. "We were attacked before entering your solar system. The Shadowclaw Syndicate is a group of technological terrorists who oppose the Concordat's recent reforms that I have been championing." reforms that would include opening diplomatic relations with emerging species like humanity. Zerevek added, their holographic form flickering less now that fewer systems were operating. So we're coming to Earth, Chen said, the pieces finally falling into place. Not just passing through. Yes, Caravan confirmed. We believed we had lost our pursuers in the Oort cloud. We were wrong. And now they seek to destroy both our vessels, along with any hope of alliance between our peoples. Dr. Marshall, who had been quietly analyzing data on her tablet, looked up sharply. The quantum fold chamber. They're not trying to destroy it. They're trying to weaponize it. Valthar's scales paled to an almost white shade. If they succeed, the resulting spatial tear won't just destroy our ships. It will create a cascade reaction that could rip apart the fabric of space-time throughout your entire solar system. The room fell silent as the full implications sank in. They weren't just fighting for their own survival anymore, they were fighting for the existence of Earth itself. How do we stop them? Chen asked, her voice hard with determination. We need to reach the primary control node on our ship, Valthar explained. From there we can isolate the quantum fold chamber from external influence, but with both ships' systems compromised. We'll have to do it manually, Rivera finished. A physical team moving through potentially depressurized sections of both vessels. With no working transport systems and unreliable life support, Zhang added grimly, it would be suicide. Not necessarily, Dr. Marshall interjected. The Concordat environmental suits, they're not just protective gear, are they? I've been studying the readings from your biosignatures. Your scales aren't just for communication, they're natural radiation shields. Princess Caravan's scales shifted to a pattern that somehow conveyed both surprise and approval. Correct, Doctor. Our suits are cybernetic enhancers that work with our natural abilities. They could protect a human team member as well, though the neural interface might be uncomfortable. I'll go, Rivera volunteered immediately. I know both ship systems better than anyone except Chief Zhang. Your Highness, you can't possibly consider, Zerevek began, but Caravan cut them off. I will lead the team myself, the princess declared. This crisis exists because of my reforms, my choices. I will not hide while others risk their lives to correct my mistakes. Chen studied the alien royal for a long moment before nodding. Rivera, you'll go with the princess. Dr. Marshall, work with Valthar to modify a suit for human use. The rest of us will do what we can to slow down the hackers and buy you time. As the team dispersed to their tasks, Zhang caught Rivera's arm. The maintenance tunnels between the ships, they're still intact. Narrow, but intact. It's your best shot at crossing over. Rivera nodded, his expression grand but determined. What about the containment field we were building? We'll keep working on it, Zhang assured him. Just get it done fast. We've got less than 2 hours before total system failure, and that's assuming the Syndicate doesn't accelerate things. As Rivera left to prepare, Chen found herself standing alone with Princess Caravan. The alien royal scales had settled into a deep, resolute blue. Captain, Caravan said softly, if we fail, we're not going to fail, Chen interrupted. Humanity didn't come this far to watch our solar system be torn apart. And something tells me your people didn't survive long enough to master quantum physics just to be stopped by some terrorists. The princess's scales flickered with what might have been amusement. You humans are remarkably optimistic in the face of impossible odds. Not optimistic, Chen corrected, determined. Now let's go save both our peoples. As they headed to prepare for what could be their final mission, neither leader could know that the Shadowclaw Syndicate had one more devastating surprise waiting for them. One that would test the limits of both human ingenuity and Concordat wisdom. Unity in crisis. The maintenance tunnel between the two ships was barely wide enough for Rivera to crawl through, and he tried not to think about how the metal walls groaned with each movement. Behind him, Princess Caravan moved with surprising grace despite her larger size, her scales casting shifting patterns of light that provided illumination in the darkness. How are the neural interfaces holding up, Lieutenant? Dr. Marshall's voice crackled through his modified Concordat suit's communications system. Rivera grimaced as another wave of foreign sensations washed over him. The suit's integration with his nervous system felt like having an extra set of limbs he never knew he wanted. Functional? Weird, but functional. Your adaptation is remarkable, Caravan commented, her scales pulsing with patterns that Rivera's suit somehow translated into emotional context, approval, concern, determination. Most non-Concordat species require days to adjust to our biotechnology. Necessity is a hell of a motivator, River replied, pausing as another tremor shook the tunnel. Captain status? Chen's voice came through, tight with tension. Zhang's team has managed to slow the hackers' progress, but we're losing systems faster than we can protect them. Whatever you're going to do it fast. They reached the junction where the tunnel connected to the Concordat vessel. River's suit sensors immediately began registering multiple warnings: radiation, spatial distortions, and energy patterns that shouldn't exist in normal space. The quantum fold chamber is becoming increasingly unstable, Valthar reported from the horizon. You have perhaps 20 minutes before containment fails completely. Understood, Kiravan acknowledged. She moved ahead of Rivera now, her larger frame providing some protection from the worst of the distortions. The primary control node is 3 levels down. We'll need tow. She stopped abruptly, her scales flashing danger patterns in brilliant red and gold. Rivera's enhanced senses picked up what had alarmed her a moment later: movement ahead and energy signatures that didn't match either ship's systems. We're not alone, he whispered. Shadowclaw agents, the princess confirmed. They must have boarded during the initial attack. Stay close to me, Lieutenant. Your suit's defensive capabilities are limited compared to mine. They moved cautiously through the Concordat ship's corridors, which seemed designed to disorient with their organic curves and shifting surfaces. Rivera's training helped him maintain his bearings, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being herded. Captain, he vocalized through the comm, any chance of backup? Negative, Chen replied. We got our hands full preventing complete system failure on both ships. You're on your own. They reached a vast chamber that Rivera's sensors identified as a gravity manipulation nexus. The space seemed to bend in impossible ways, with multiple walkways intersecting at angles that defied Euclidean geometry. The control node is 2 levels below us, Kiravan indicated. But we've been expecting you, a new voice echoed through the chamber. 3 figures emerged from the shadows, their suits similar to the Concordat design but darker, more aggressive in appearance. Their scales showed patterns that Rivera's interface translated as hatred and zealous determination. Shadowclaw, Kiravan's voice, carried equal parts anger and sadness. Why destroy everything we built? These humans have shown us nothing but. They'd shown us that you're weak, the lead figure interrupted. Reaching out to primitive species, diluting our technological superiority with talk of shared progress and mutual understanding. The Concordat was meant to rule the stars, not hold hands with barely space-capable races. Rivera felt a surge of very human anger at the insult, but years of tactical training kept him focused on the real problem. While the terrorists were monologuing, his suit's sensors were mapping the chamber, analyzing weak points and possible advantages. Princess, he vocalized, those gravity manipulators, can they be localized? Her scales flickered briefly with understanding. Yes, but the power requirements would be met by the energy already bleeding from the quantum fold chamber, he finished. We just need to survive long enough to implement it. The lead Shadowclaw agent stepped forward, apparently interpreting their quiet exchange as fear. Your reforms die here, Princess, along with Earth's hope of joining the galactic community. Actually, Rivers said, allowing himself a small smile, I think you'll find humans are full of surprises. What happened next was a blur of motion and energy. Rivers' enhanced reflexes, courtesy of the Concordat suit, let him dive for cover as Kiravan accessed a nearby control panel. The princess's scales blazed with patterns of pure energy as she initiated their desperate plan. The gravity manipulators activated in a cascading sequence, creating localized fields that turned the chamber into a maze of conflicting forces. The Shadowclaw agents, caught off guard by the human-inspired tactic, found their superior technology working against them as they struggled to compensate for the rapidly shifting gravitational vectors. The control node, Kiravan shouted. Now. River didn't hesitate. Using the gravitational chaos to his advantage, he let himself fall upward through a gap in the walkways, trusting his suit's systems to protect him from the worst of the spatial distortions. He landed hard on a lower level, rolled, and sprinted toward the quantum fold chamber's primary control interface. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of combat as Kiravan engaged the terrorists directly, her royal guard training evident in every movement. His suit's sensors screened warnings about the increasing instability of the space around them, but he forced himself to focus on the task at hand. 10 minutes to containment failure. Valthar's voice seemed distant now, distorted by the growing spatial anomalies. Rivera reached the control node and began the complex sequence of commands that would isolate the quantum fold chamber. His fingers flew across the alien interface, his suit translating his intentions into actions, even as his human mind struggled to comprehend the principles involved. A massive explosion rocked the chamber above, and for a moment, gravity seemed to cease existing entirely. River held onto the control panel, watching as streams of data and energy coursed through the system. Everything depended on timing this perfectly. "Lieutenant?" Caravan's warning came just as one of the Shadowclaw agents dropped down beside him, weapon raised. But before either of them could act, a new variable entered the equation, one that would change everything. And in that moment, as time seemed to stand still, Rivera realized that the true test of both species was about to begin. Legacy of Two Worlds. Time seemed to freeze as Rivera stared down the barrel of the Shadowclaw agent's weapon. But the shot never came. Instead, the terrorists' scales suddenly flashed with patterns of confusion and pain as their suit systems began to malfunction spectacularly. "You forget," Chief Zhang's voice came through the comm, tight with satisfaction. "While you were busy watching them, we were busy too." The virus Zhang's team had uploaded through the compromised systems of both ships had finally reached its target: the neural interfaces of the Shadowclaw suits themselves. It was crude by Concordat standards, human programming meeting alien technology, but sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective. "Now, Lieutenant," Caravan shouted from above, her scales blazing with battle energy, as she dealt with the remaining terrorists. Rivera turned back to the control node, his fingers flying across the interface with newfound determination. The quantum fold chamber's containment was failing faster now, reality itself beginning to warp around them. But in that distortion, he saw their salvation. "Captain," he called out, "remember what you said about human determination." "What are you thinking, Lieutenant?" Chen's voice was steady despite the chaos. "The Shadowclaw tried to weaponize the quantum fold chamber. But what if we could use that energy differently?" His mind raced ahead even as he spoke. "Dr. Marshall, you said their scales act as natural radiation shields, right?" "Yes, but..." The xenologist gasped as she realized what he was suggesting. "The containment field we were building. We don't need to contain the energy, we need to channel it." "We have the energy," Zhang cut in. "Too much of it, in fact. We just need to redirect it properly." Captain Chen's voice carried the weight of command. "What do you need?" "Every Concordat member on both ships needs to sync their scale patterns," River explained, his suit's neural interface helping him understand concepts his human mind could barely grasp. "The resonance has to be perfect. Meanwhile, we'll use the Horizon's magnetic containment systems to shape the energy flow." "The risk?" Ambassador Zerevek's hologram flickered with concern. "If we fail, the feedback could kill every Concordat member instantly." "Then we better not fail," Caravan said firmly. Her scales began to pulse with a steady, rhythmic pattern. "My people will follow my lead." "Captain Chen, is your crew ready?" "Always," Chen replied without hesitation. "Zhang, coordinate with Valthar. Rivera, you're our link between the systems. Princess, it's been an honor, whatever happens." The next few minutes were a symphony of cooperation between two species that had been strangers mere hours ago. The Concordat members' scales pulsed in perfect harmony, creating waves of bioresonant energy that Rivera's modified suit helped him direct through the ship's systems. The Horizon's magnetic fields, guided by Zhang's precise calculations, shaped that energy into patterns that defied conventional physics. The quantum fold chamber's containment began to stabilize, but not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of forcing the energy back, they were transforming it, creating something entirely new. "Energy patterns are shifting," Dr. Marshall reported, her voice filled with wonder. "The spatial tear, it's not closing, it's changing." "The fold chamber," Valthar added. "It's creating a stable quantum bridge between our technologies." Rivera watched in amazement as the swirling energies before him began to take on a structured form. Where there had been chaos, there was now harmony. Human ingenuity and Concordat wisdom working together to create something neither species could have achieved alone. The Shadowclaw agents, their suits now completely disabled, could only watch as their attempt to destroy two civilizations instead became the catalyst for their ultimate cooperation. Hours later, with both ships safely stabilized and the immediate crisis past, Captain Chen stood in the Horizon's observation room with Princess Caravan. The quantum bridge between their ships glowed with a soft, steady light, a visible symbol of what they had achieved together. The Shadow Claw believed that reaching out to other species would weaken us. Caravan said, "We're scales now showing patterns of peaceful contemplation. Instead, we've grown stronger through cooperation." Your Lieutenant Rivera's solution would never have occurred to our engineers. We were too set in our traditional understanding of our own technology. And we would never have survived without your people's unique abilities, Chen acknowledged. So what happens now? The princess turned to face her, scales shifting to colors of hope and determination. "Now, Captain, we fulfill the purpose of my original mission. Earth has more than proven itself ready for full diplomatic relations with the Concordat. But more than that, I believe our peoples have something profound to teach each other. About technology, about everything." Caravan's scales rippled with what Chen had learned to recognize as a smile. "Your crew's actions today showed us that true advancement comes not from isolation, but from sharing perspectives. The quantum bridge we created, it's more than just a technological achievement. It's a pathway to a future neither of us could have imagined alone." As if to emphasize her words, a series of messages began coming through from Earth. The energy signatures from their crisis had been detected, and the whole world was about to learn they weren't alone in the universe. But unlike the Shadow Claw's feared scenario of panic and weakness, the initial reactions were filled with hope and curiosity. Humanity reaching out to embrace a larger universe. "Your reforms," Chen said thoughtfully, "they weren't just about diplomatic relations, were they? You're trying to change how your entire civilization thinks about progress." "As are you," Caravan replied. "And today proved that both our peoples are ready for that change." Together, they watched as Earth came into view below them, its blue sphere now seeming somehow larger than before, not just humanity's cradle, but the birthplace of a new era of cooperation between species. The quantum bridge pulsed steadily between the ships, a testament to what could be achieved when different perspectives came together in pursuit of a common goal.